Hello everyone, this is the Bracca Fleet Combat Mission. This is a sort of a commentary, footage, walkthrough, whatever you want to call it, of a non-profundity lineup working against this fleet combat mission. Some people do have to assign their profundity into ops, and therefore they don't have access to profundity or rebel ships, or some rebel ships. And as a result, they are forced to use either the negotiator or the home one lineup for this fleet mission. Until recently, negotiator has been the best go-to lineup, mainly because it had powerful AoEs, mass assists. Its lineup consists of Marauder, which inflicts target lock, unresistible against the enemy's scythe, allowing it to ability block, and it required just as much RNG as trying to get a Executrix fleet with TIE Defender to beat the Geonosis fleet mission in the same phase. It requires a lot of luck, mainly to do with damage, and hopefully the AI does not do any of the moves that forces you to not be able to hit Scythe. So this fleet has I've tried it with Negotiator. I've only managed to beat it with Negotiator in one try. In one of the runs out of the many runs I've tried for about a year. So Negotiator is off the table. However, recently CG has released the Rogue One and the B-Wing ship. Both of them are game changers for the home one lineup, especially since Rogue One, even though it's mostly associated with Profundity, can now be used with home one because of the fact that it's not a scoundrel, therefore not breaking the B-Wing ability to reinforce early and give the rebel lineup the ambush at the start that it needs. I have tried it with home one before, however, in a video somewhere on my channel, it has failed. Mainly, we got the scythe down, so I know it has a damage, but because this is phase 2 and we haven't reached Kashyyyk yet, the biggest problem is that it loses a lot of its attack power after its initial turns are finished, allowing the enemy fleet to take advantage of the fact that the fleet is fragile and basically snap it in half. So that's why this mission is so difficult. Hopefully I have some stronger ships this time around, and we are once again going to try with the home one lineup. This will be the non-profundity lineup for this fleet mission. I have here with me Rogue One with Relic 5 pilots, maxed out mods. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to have enough resources to make them Relic 7 or 8, but I think that would be really good for this mission, is to increase the damage output, so hopefully you can get another turn in before the enemy starts taking their turns. Ravenclaw for the offense boost, Ghost for the mass assist, and calling Rogue One. This fleet is basically the alternative fleet for Catherine, actually, without the profundity, except it's a lot more higher relics demanding. So if you have to assign a profundity this phase to someone, try to target someone with Rogue One and Ravenclaw at 7 stars, as well as B-Wing, and try to target for those who do have, if you happen to have multiple people, try to target the ones with high relics with the starting ships. Because ideally it's going to come down to critical hits in terms of trying to beat. After Scythe goes down, you want to really kill the rest of the fleet quickly. And you want to kill Scythe quicker, because that'll give you more turns to kill the rest of the fleet, because this fleet is a glass cannon. So If they get their turns in, and especially if Scythe is alive, then your fleet's going to be gone. There's no tank. There's no point in having a strong tank like Biggs in the starting lineup because it's just going to take away from what this fleet does best, which is ambush power, the ability to do as much damage as it can before the enemy takes even its first turn. All right, these are the relics I'm going with. Wish me luck. So obviously, the first thing we're going to do is bring in B-Wing. We're going to activate turn order list. So B-Wing's second ability could call a random ally with defense up buff to assist. We're hoping it would be Rogue One. We're hoping that it's not Raven's Claw. Rogue One has a lot of damage. If it's Ravenclaw who gets called to assist, that's bad luck, because Ravenclaw will take its turn next with the plus 50 speed once everyone gets to 100% turn meter from the master plan that Home One provides. So let's hope that it's not Raven's Claw. Alright, so it's not Raven's Claw, but it's also not Rogue One, so this is kind of mediocre luck. Fortunately for my pilots, I think my Ghost is, the fastest ship on the fleet, slightly faster than my B-Wing, so hopefully it's able to call Rogue One to assist. Right now, we're going to give everyone Master Plan. I expect the Ghost to be next. As you can see, the Ghost is next, thanks to higher relics on its pilots. Relic 8s, in fact. We're going to go ahead and whenever it does its mass assist, it only calls 3 rebel allies to assist. Sometimes it calls itself, sometimes it doesn't. But the point is, it only calls 3, and there are 4 rebel ships. So what does that mean? That means that you can at least guarantee one of them, and you want it to be Rogue One because it provides the damage. It does 3 times on its basic. So it can do quite a bit of damage. So that's what we're going to call. See, that triple hit, that triple gold critical hit came from Rogue One and already snapped Scythe's protection by a bunch. We're going to do it again. Just look at that. That's beautiful. And this is why you want to call Rogue One, because it also inflicts a target lock on the enemy that's unresistible. The enemy has very high tenacity, so anytime you try to inflict the debuff, unless it says unresistible, it's going to probably be dispelled. And fortunately, because it has target lock, the basic for Ravenclaw can call another random non-scoundrel rebel ally to assist. That's what we're going to do. And that's best RNG. And look at that. So many target locks. We're going to do the same thing. Look at how much health they have. That is crazy. We're going to go ahead and do the AoE here. And now that is decommissioned. And we're going to target their TIE fighter because TIE Advance, this guy, he sometimes does the special and it doesn't do any damage. But TIE fighter, especially when it doesn't have foresight, will do a ton of damage every single turn he gets. So that's why we're going to target him. And fortunately for us, this is going to be the most obvious move, the second ability, because the only ship on our side that has defense up is Rogue One. So it's just going to call Rogue One. Alright, cool. We're going to just go ahead and do a basic here. And we're going to do a basic here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and try and do an AoE. Alright, since they have target lock, we're going to do a basic. Alright. And we can kind of give master plan to everyone again. So let's go ahead and do that. I think we called B-Wing a lot. So every time B-Wing gets called to assist, that reduces the cooldown for master plan for the capital ship. I think we got lucky there. I think the main thing is we want to focus on the damage rather than the master plan. But that might be a play for the future. Maybe we do call B-Wing all the time. If if you're missing the damage, so you can get more consistent turns. Either way, we could have a choice between AoE or we could do this move. And this is an interesting move because this will give an enemy an expose, which might be the most damaging ability because they have a lot of health. So let's go ahead and inflict expose. Since there's 3 enemies, we're gonna get 90% turn meter. Although it's probably 90% turn meter means it still gets to take a turn before the enemy does. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, let's go ahead and do a basic here and a basic here, and it looks like that got decommissioned. We're gonna do a basic here. Is there any defense up? Now, there are no defense up on our side, so there's no point in doing the second ability because no one's going to get called to assist. We're going to go ahead, and since everyone has evasion down on the enemy side, this will do double damage. Nice damage here. Because it has target lock, we're going to do a basic. It's also the only ship that's not decommissioned. Alright, and then because, Ghost did the swivel, and that's something you could play around with, is if there are 3 target locks on the enemy, all 3 enemies are debuffed, it gets that swivel ability, take them down ability, the 4th ability that the Ghost has, will gain 90% turn meter, and that allows, you can do that literally on the second try, but we're just trying to finish the enemy off, so let's go ahead and do that. And look at that. That is a beautiful win. That is an amazing win. Alright. So you now know the strategy, and that is honestly very beautiful to see. It's so good to have Home 1 being able to beat the Bracca fleet combat mission.